Having money to invest does not guarantee success in business. In fact, sometimes it can make it even harder. In today's video, I'm going to share the story of how I invested $120,000 into a software idea and I essentially lost it all. However, I picked myself up and I tried on a different software idea, and this time I thought more like a bootstrapper and made over $1 million from my next software idea. If you want to improve your odds of success with your next big software idea, then this video is for you. I first need to tell the story by going all the way back to 2016 when I sold my first software company, Longtail Pro. I sold this for a significant sum of money and I was on cloud nine, and I also happened to have a lot of money to invest. And so I did invest in a number of different ideas, and one of those was another software idea that I came up with called Table Lab. Now, I had just had this big exit, I had all of this money, and in fact, I invested $120,000 building Table Labs. That was mostly in software development. I hired a US-based developer. I invested big. I also invested in a high-end logo. I don't remember exactly how much I spent on the logo, but I think it was close to $1,000, way more than necessary. But I was pulling out all the stops. I figured, hey, I had been really successful in my first software idea. I think I've got a good idea on this next one. I've got a lot of money. Let's go all in. Let's push all the chips that I have in and let's build big. So I didn't just stop with the software and the fancy logo. Of course, I had to have a fancy website as well. I got a custom developed theme. I spent thousands of dollars getting the website beautifully designed. Everything was done perfectly. And I spent a lot of money doing it. Now, I also had an audience because I had built Longtail Pro. I had been building niche pursuits for a number of years. And so I orchestrated a massive launch with my email list. I sent out the 3 emails sort of teasing the launch, demoing the software, and then I opened the cart. And what happened on the first day of sales? It was essentially crickets. And in fact, the first 3 days, I think the first week, this launch period where I was hoping to make a ton of money, I made a total of $1,400. Now, after the launch and only making $1,400, obviously I was devastated. I expected to do much, much better. But things didn't go much better after that. In fact, I tried for 3 years. I was tweaking the features. I was listening to customers. I was doing calls with customers, and I was changing prices. I went from monthly pricing. I was priced way too high initially, so I lowered the price monthly, and then I tried annual pricing. I tried different packages, but nothing really hit that sweet spot. And over a period of 3 years, I only made $50,000. $50,000 back in my pocket out of that $120,000 investment. Now looking back on Table Labs, I essentially had 2 problems. First, I had overestimated the market size. I had thought everyone that was an Amazon associate would want Table Labs. Essentially what the software did is that if you were building a product comparison table, if you had an Amazon Associates or an Amazon affiliate website, you might compare a lot of different products. And you would want to put this in a beautiful chart that you could sort and filter, and Table Labs would help you build this beautiful looking product comparison table almost instantaneously with prices, with ratings, with features, with all of the different products that you were comparing. Now, it was a great idea and it worked wonderfully. But what I realized is that there were also a lot of WordPress plugins or other tools that you could use. So you could create a comparison table for free. It might not look as good as Table Labs. It might have taken you longer, but there was a free option. And so the overall market size of people actually wanting to pay was much smaller than I had estimated. Now, the other thing that I mentioned before is that I priced the software tool way too high. I was charging as much as $67 or $77 or even $97 a month, depending on the package that you wanted. And people just were not willing to pay that much. And so I priced it too high. I tried for those 3 years, and eventually the market told me, hey, we're not really interested in this software idea that you have. So I decided to try again. This time, I built Link Whisper. And with Link Whisper, I tried to take notice of those 2 problems that I had. I tried to figure out, is the market size big enough? And I tried not to price it too high. And in addition, I went ahead and I hired an overseas-based developer for a few $1,000s to get an MVP out the door. I didn't spend $1,000 or more on a logo. I got a Fiverr logo that, cost me $5 or $10 to get. And in fact, that logo is still the logo for Link Whisper. And instead of getting a custom built theme, a custom website, I spent $20 on a WordPress theme. And this time, when I launched, it was a clear winner. Link Whisper did $30,000 in its very first month. And after that, there was a dip after the launch period, but that's to be expected because I pushed it to my audience and I made that $30,000 in that first month. But then there was clear signs after that of growth and traction. So why the success? There was definitely a bigger market size. When you look at how many people are doing SEO and are using WordPress, there's millions. In fact, I went to WordPress.org and I looked at Yoast SEO to see how many free downloads their plugin has, because that's people that are interested in SEO and they're on WordPress. It has over 5 million active installations. So I knew right there that my market size was at least 5 million users. That's huge. In addition, I had better pricing. Instead of doing something like $47, $67, or even $97 per month, my launch pricing was just $47 per year. I came in low and I knew if I got buyers at that price, they might be willing to sustain a higher price after that. So in order to start a software idea, you don't always have to go big. Often taking the bootstrapper's mindset will lead to more success than spending a ton of money. The mindset that you take is so important. So in my case with Link Whisper, after I had learned of going so big, unfortunately I spent $120,000. I got $50,000 of that back, but Table Labs overall was essentially a flop, and it was a big lesson for me. So I took this bootstrapper's mindset with Link Whisper. I invested only a few $1,000s in an MVP, and I made that back quickly. Now, of course, I've now reinvested and spent more and more and hired more developers, but I've always taken this bootstrapper's mindset, and I've now made over $1 million with Link Whisper in sales. So if you're going to start your next big software idea, I recommend that you think with a bootstrapper's mindset. How can you test the waters with an MVP? You don't have to go big on your logo, on your website idea. You don't have to spend a ton of money testing out different pricing strategies and features. Figure out what the core customer wants and build that simple feature. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you want to learn more of how I've built my software ideas, I did an entire video on how I built Longtail Pro to a 7-figure exit that you can watch right here. Thanks again for watching.